Good evening, Broncos country. It is the old switcheroo again. Gonna switch up the Wednesday night with the orange and blue view coming at you instead of Mile High Insiders, and Mile High Insiders will be here on Saturday. So a little scheduling changes, just because we have some hosts that needed to move things around. But here we are. It's Ron White and myself, Thomas Hall, and we are coming at you tonight talking a little bit about Broncos country and some goings on, and hopefully get into the safety position and a little bit of Kareem Jackson talk. Anyway, how are you doing tonight, Ron?
I'm doing well, Thomas.
All right.
Weather's nice here in Georgia, in Atlanta, and I'm ready to talk about safety position.
All right. We had the draft, and we've kind of exhausted a little bit of that. I mean, we've talked a lot about the draft, but if you have any questions about the prospects, make sure you hit us up, and we'll talk about anything you want tonight. Just drop it into the live chat, and we'll go for it. Let's see if we have the other streams that we haven't brought in yet. I'll bring them in now. Sorry about that. It's a little late. And all right, we are live on all the channels now: Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. All right. Well, so there were some rumors before the draft, back a little bit, about 6, 7 days ago. I think Kelberman from Mile High Huddle wrote up an article about it. The Broncos actually offered a contract. The rumor is they offered a contract to Kareem Jackson to come back. That was before the draft, and then we watched them draft a 6th-round safety. They also brought in some undrafted free agents. Ron, tell me, how are you feeling about Kareem Jackson in general, and whether or not having him come back is a benefit or not a benefit? And then we'll jump into the chat, see some questions, and say hello to some folks.
Yes, Kareem Jackson. He's a try-hard guy. He's a good tackler. He'll bring that veteran presence, that leadership that the team is needing, especially at the safety position. When he first came to Denver, he was good. I was a great Kareem Jackson fan, but you can tell over the past few seasons, Thomas, he's lost a step. He's actually lost a couple steps.
Yeah, for sure.
And I see why they're considering bringing him back, just because to solidify the experience and the leadership on the team. But I'm a big fan of starting your younger players, right? You drafted JL Skinner. We have Caden Stearns. Now, I know part of the concern also could be that Caden Stearns hasn't really seen as much field time just because he's injury prone as well, right? So, maybe having that veteran presence, that guy that's known to be out on the field and available, and Kareem Jackson can help the team. And I think that's why they're looking to re-signing him. But I like Caden Stearns. And as Peyton mentioned, Caden Stearns does have starter traits. I mean, we saw the athleticism and the physicality when he was out in the field. And that's a big upgrade on Kareem Jackson for sure.
Sure.
But again, I see them, looking at this more from we're not sure what we're going to do with, we're not sure how Caden Stearns is going to bounce back from injury, and then still trying to get JL Skinner within the fold. And I know JL Skinner will probably be on there for special teams and such, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, and the thing was, when they offered him this contract was before the draft. They only had 4 safeties on the roster, so things have changed since then. So, those are things we're going to talk about tonight. Those, what's changed, why we should have a different outlook, and whether or not we should, the Broncos should really bring a veteran safety back into the fold with who they have on the roster now, which does make a bit of a difference. But before we do, we're going to say hello to our guy Dylan Von Arks with Mile High Huddle, saying, "What's up, Broncos country? Make sure you hit the like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and subscribe if you haven't already. So please do. Thank you very much for that, Dylan. Thanks for being here and supporting us while we're in the show." And we've got David McIlrath coming in with a super chat. Thank you so much, saying, "Good evening, Broncos country. Luke, Tom, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Mile High Huddle for life. Buckham ×3 and Denver Broncos for life." thank you for the support, David. We really, really appreciate that. And as always, we love seeing you here in the chat and answering your questions and having that dialogue. So thank you very much.
Yes.
We got James Richard coming in with a super chat as well. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. And he's saying, I'm hoping and yet confident we got a steal with Jaleel McLaughlin going running back already. We're talking about safeties. We're already talking about running backs. Yeah. And he says, even at the very least special teams, watch his highlights if you haven't. Yeah. I mean, you can jump in here, Ron, if you want. It's an undrafted guy out of Youngstown State, kind of one of those smaller, but, kind of high impact, so to speak, players, when he was in college. So, yeah, he didn't make it through the draft, didn't get drafted, made it through. Broncos convinced him to come on as an undrafted free agent, rookie free agent. We'll see how it goes. The nice thing about it is, they are bringing in some bodies into the running back position, which was another thin position. Like I mentioned, there was only 4 safeties on the roster. So we wanted to talk about Kareem Jackson before the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, the running back room is a little thin as well. I know that they signed Perrine and they decided, he's the starter while Javonte Williams comes back. And I've said it a million times. We never know what Javonte Williams is going to be like after that serious injury. So bringing in another running back was a good idea. They didn't draft one. So they brought undrafted free agents. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to be fun to watch these young guys compete.
Yes, thank you again, James Richard, for your comment. Much appreciated. And yeah, Jaleel McLaughlin is a very dynamic and intriguing player. He's very explosive. I've seen the highlights. I've seen the film, and he's definitely good. I believe at Youngstown State, he rushed for, I think, over 3,000 yards in 3 years. Finished his college career with about 9,000 rushing yards total. So yeah, he's very dynamic. And I know also at Youngstown State's Pro Day, he turned a lot of heads. So I'm glad we were able to get to bring him on. And you're right, Thomas. It does leave, with Murray now being signed by the Bills, that running back room is still up for grabs. We don't know, as you mentioned, Javonte Williams coming back. We don't know when he's going to come back. Again, they seem still high and confident that it will be at the beginning of the season. I highly doubt it. And then when he does come back, what is he going to look like post-injury? So again, any means necessary to shore up that running back room. And a person like Jaleel McLaughlin can help do that. We know with P. Ryan, he's that bruiser. But yeah, we'll have to see how that shakes out. If they're going to sign another one, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, and the smaller guys, coming in, the dynamic running backs who can catch passes out of the backfield, it's going to bring Darren Sproles comparisons up. Sean Payton had him in New Orleans, a very dynamic kind of change of pace guy, good receiver out of the backfield. So, you're going to get those comparisons, and who knows? I mean, Sean Payton may be able to make something out of him. You never know. Hopefully, I mean, I hope all these young guys stick, but the chances of them all sticking on the roster are pretty slim. And, that has to do also with when we talk about safeties, right? I mean, I'm going to change the subject back. I'm sorry, back to safeties, but my issue with it is, we watched him draft Skinner in the 6th round, and I think he was drafted later than he should have been. So don't get me wrong. I like Skinner. I think he's a kind of a steal of the draft, so to speak. But when you start looking at safeties in the 6th round, the numbers show that they don't really become impact players. It's only about 15% of them over the last decade or so have actually became starters in the league. So he can't, jump on the fact, oh, he's going to be this dynamic player. Now, I do like him, and I think he was drafted late again, so he's going to have more potential. But the other thing that you have to think about is they got 5 safeties on the roster, and over that same time period, if you didn't, if a safety doesn't become an impact player or doesn't become a starter, their average is about just over 3.5 years staying in the league. And over that time, there's about 28% of them only lasted 2 years. So there is some concern for me. They still have some young safeties on the roster, right? I know we got Justin Simmons. He's an impact player, right? He's a good player. And then from there, it's a little bit of a question marks. I like Caden Stearns too. But again, he still has to prove himself. I like PJ Locke. He has to prove himself. I actually liked Delaren Turner-Yell coming out. He has to prove himself. And now you got Skinner, and then they also got a couple undrafted free agents that can play safety. And then there's also the option of the cornerback that they drafted there that could also maybe play a little. He was projected to play a little free safety. So there are some options, but all of them besides Justin Simmons are still unproven. So I can understand why they are looking to bring Kareem Jackson back. One, he has great leadership skills. I talked with Justin Simmons last summer. He talked about Kareem Jackson being one of those leaders that helped him in his progress to becoming what he is today. So, and becoming a leader. So that's always good. But at the same time, this is a 14-year vet who's definitely saw the decline. So, I don't know if they're going to come to an agreement, but it is wise to have some of those veteran leaders on the team.
Yeah, I agree. Jackson does definitely provide that veteran leadership, that experience, and you're right on JL Skinner, where he, if it weren't for that torn pec, right, he can go way earlier. We saw the film, and again, I think Luke got me real hype on on our last episode.
Yeah.
Because again, I wasn't the biggest fan of them drafting it, but now that I'm watching more highlights, this dude is a ball hawk. So I am very excited with JL Skinner, and I'm thinking, if they do sign Kareem Jackson back, it's going to be like another 1-year deal. And I see in that time frame, again, that transition of, the torch, or that passing of the torch to the Caden Stearns and or the JL Skinner. We have Mike S coming in here, which I think this is an interesting comment. Speaking of safeties here with Jackson. Thank you, Mike S. He says, I don't think we should bring back Jackson as a player, but maybe as a coach. That's definitely an interesting take. And again, that, depending on, how Peyton and the staff sees Jackson moving forward, that could definitely be a possibility. He does have those traits that can be teachable and that can help the team. Just from a traits perspective. So that could definitely be a possibility. But again, I think just for this 1 year, I can see them maybe bringing him back just to, again, pass the torch. He obviously, with the effort that he brings, he hypes the team up for sure. So I can definitely see him coming back just for that alone.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, though, you got to think about when you're going to go to that. You could bring him in. You don't want to bring him as a camp body. He's a veteran. He's played a long time. But when you come down to that final, 53-man roster, and you say there's no injuries to the safety group, right? Are you going to want to keep Kareem Jackson over some of these other young guys who look promising? And that's where I kind of go, do they really need to sign him? Yes, he's a leader, right? I don't think they're going to bring him in as a coach. It would be interesting down the road maybe, but when you come down to, do you want to sacrifice the people like Stearns and PJ Locke and Skinner to have, an aging vet just kind of, filling out the roster for that last year or two that he can make it in the league, right? I don't know. To me, it's like, yeah, if I wanted to bring somebody in to give more depth as they go through training camp and they go, I would think about a younger guy that, you're not, I don't know. I mean, to me, you're going to bring him in as a vet minimum, and then you're going to end up cutting him at the end, probably if there's no injuries, because you're going to make that decision to go with the youth. So, and that's the same decision they're going to have to make with Justin Simmons pretty soon, as he comes up on his unrestricted free agency. Are you willing to keep K-Jack, and you're willing to keep, you're going to keep Simmons, but, down the road, you're going to sacrifice these young guys' development when you hopefully can develop them. So I have my doubts that they're going to bring him in now just because they have a couple young guys, but they may, because he is a leader, and that's always very relevant and important to the team. Got Phil McLaughlin coming in. Hey, Phil, how you doing? Coming in from Facebook. It's great to see you. Saying good morning or good evening, Thomas, Ron, and Deacon Scott. I was reading that there is a mini camp next week, and Peyton is having some vets like Jacques Patrick and Trent Harris. I think this is something new. Having vets at rookie mini camp. Buck 'em, go Broncos. Yeah, I didn't hear that. That's interesting. Ron, did you hear about that? That they're bringing in some vets to the rookie camp?
Yeah, well, about the vets, but I know. No, I didn't hear about that one, Phil.
Huh. Well, it is interesting. Yeah. I mean, they are doing the mini camp. They did announce that they're going to start that mini camp, right? They did the weightlifting thing, getting conditioned. They're kind of foregone that, little off-season camp that they do and no team organized really activities as far as getting on the field, but, working out, conditioning. Now they are going to have the camp, and that's coming up. I did not know that they were going to invite some vets to the mini camp, which is cool. I think it's great. I mean, the Broncos need to change it up, right? They've been doing kind of the same thing over the last few years and losing. So anything that kind of freshens it up, changes a little bit, that's great. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear about these two vets coming in, but it will be interesting to see how this develops. With Sean Payton's new approach, new perspective, it's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, Phil, clarify. I think I did hear about them bringing in some players from the XFL. And I'm not sure if these are those players. But yeah, if someone wants to clarify that in the chat or that'll be great. But
yeah,
yes.
Howie freaking Day coming in. I love it. It's a great name coming from Facebook saying, hey, fellas, with this defense, how does our offense play? RPO style? What do you think, Ron?
I think with this defense, there's going to be, thank you, Howie, again, for your question. I'm much appreciated. And I think it's going to be some RPO in this offense, but expect a heavy dose of run. It's going to be run first, run heavy, run often. And that will be design runs for Russell Wilson, of course, with P. Ryan for sure. But it's going to be a ground attack for sure for this Denver offense. I think Sean Payton's goal is to wear down the defense with all of these schemes that are mostly just running plays, and then in those situations have Russell Wilson drop back and do his magic, and there will be a consistent passing game as well. But I see it more some of the RPO styles, some of those concepts in play, but mostly just ground attacking, wearing that defense out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to be as run heavy as everybody's hoping for. They are going to do a lot of run first type plays in order to get that passing game opened up, I think. But I don't really want the multi-million-dollar quarterback out there running RPO all the time. I just don't. I don't think they should sacrifice his a few plays to injury. I do think they need to be a little more creative with Russell Wilson than they were than last year, where he's trying to drop back. I think they're going to get him moving a little bit more, some rollouts and things like that. I don't know about the RPO. I hope not. I mean, a little bit of element in there, but yeah, I think you're right, Ron. Set up the pass with the run a little bit more, just back like they used to do, back in, with Mike Shanahan, where it was run first, but they always had they had Elway or Plummer or whoever out on the move a little bit more. You get those defenders sucked into the run and then hit them with the pass. But yeah, I just looked it up, and you guys are right. I didn't know that they were invited to the rookie mini camp. I thought they were invited to just the regular mini camp. But yeah, the two XFL kind of standouts, the running back and the outside linebacker, the edge rusher that I think led the league in XFL league in sacks. I think they're coming to the mini camp. So that's interesting. Yeah, the rookie mini camp, which I did not know. I thought it was the regular mini camp. So that's interesting. Going to get them in there and get them started right away. So that's great. I look forward to it, man. I look forward to the competition and hopefully some of these people that developed a little in the XFL can come in and do something in the NFL, because that's what that league's all about, right? Development over the spring, get people in. I used to love watching the World Football League or turned into NFL Europe, because a lot of those guys were people that the Broncos or other teams had on their roster, and they sent them over to develop in NFL Europe. And hopefully this XFL will be similar if it sticks around. I'm hoping it will. But yeah, that'll be fun. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking as well with Trent Harris, going back to Phil's comment, and I think Trent Harris got some praise from our former our former DC and Wade Phillips.
Yes.
That he's a great edge, and he can come in certain packages and help rush the passer and be good for special teams. So that's getting high praise right there.
Yeah, for sure. Just want to say, hey, hello to Carol coming in, saying good evening, Broncos country. Hello, Carol. Appreciate you coming in here. And then William Catalano's in here with a question. Just watch a video on Jackson Mahomes and Antonio Brown. Sad that those two have become. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's unfortunate that those guys have kind of gone down the wrong path. But thank you for coming in, William. Really appreciate it. Got Michaela obviously coming in. She's one of the regulars of Mile High Huddle. So thank you for being here, saying good evening, guys. Appreciate it. And saying Kareem is a liability. That is a strong opinion, Michaela, but I think you're right. He has lost a few steps. And last year, it wasn't just it seemed like a lot of the other defenders were doing pretty well under Evero's scheme, and Jackson was not his old self. He's still a solid hitter, but and good in run support, but his coverage was lacking last year. So I think you're right, Michaela. He was a little bit of a liability in coverage, and in this day and age, in the passing game the way it is, you've got to have safeties that can cover, not just support the run. And the run supporters have kind of gone by the wayside, in my opinion.
Yes. Thank you, Michaela, for this comment. And I 100% agree. A big liability. And you hit the nail right on the head, Thomas, in coverage. In run support, he's good. He's solid. He's a sure hitter and a tackler. But on those passing plays, you hold your breath just because you don't know what you're going to get. It's a step too slow. He's not lined up correctly. There's so many different factors going on in those passing plays, and that's part of the reason why I'm not the biggest fan of re-signing him, because you can't be slow with your step. You have to make sure in coverage that you hold up your end. Yeah. And I have this feeling we've seen with Caden Stearns and the tape I've seen with Skinner. They definitely have that athleticism and physicality to hold up their end in coverage. So I'm right there with you, Miguel.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when I had Carl Mecklenburg on Legends of Mile High, I asked him, did he regret retiring when he did? Because only a couple of years later, the Broncos went on to win the Super Bowl, and something that he'd been there 3 times and hadn't done. So I asked him that question, and he was like, no, I lost a step, right? I knew that I was one step too slow, and it was time for me to retire, is basically what he said. And so, you got to understand, if you can't do the job, if you can't get there on time in order to make that play, and you're becoming you're like Michaela says, you're becoming a liability to the team on defense. It is time, it's time to hang them up. And sometimes it's hard for players to realize that. And sometimes you have to do some self-reflection and realize that, I just can't cover the way I used to. And it's time for me to pack it in. And really, he prolonged his career by switching to safety, right? He was a cornerback, switched to safety because, he wasn't quite there every time on the cornerback side, and he switched to safety, prolonged his career. So yeah, maybe it is time that he packs it in. So I got a question here coming back in from Howie freaking Day, which I love. I love that name, Howie freaking Day. I've never heard that before. It's great. Thanks for coming in. But he's asking, without injury, who gets the most sacks this year for the Broncos? What do you think, Ron?
Ooh, this is a good question, Howie.
I'll jump in. Let you think about it. I'll jump in. I think it's Randy Gregory. It's Randy Gregory for me. If no one's injured, but I just don't trust him to stay on the field.
See, so yeah, I was thinking Baron Browning, but I would say more strip sacks, ball out, because that's more Randy Gregory style. I would say Randy Gregory
Yeah.
on that front. But yeah, I was thinking more sacks, and then it could be. Yeah, I'll still go with Browning. That's just my guess.
Yeah, I mean, you strip the ball, it's still considered a sack, right? I mean, you strip sack is still considered sack, but yeah, it's got to be it has to be Randy Gregory, really. If everybody stays healthy, he was brought in to be the impact player as an edge rusher, and he was just out too much. When he was on the field, he created some great plays. Strip sacks. I think he's an impactful player. His problem is he can't stay on the field, but the caveat here is without injury. So
Yeah.
I'm going with Randy Gregory without injury. If you take the injury into consideration and who's going to be out on the field the most, I'm going with Zach Allen. I think Zach Allen will lead the team in sacks because he can stay healthy and he can stay on the field. That's where I'm going.
And that was where my head was as well with Zach Allen. Again, I was, yeah, I was thinking Zach Allen if injuries do come to bite, for sure, are Browning and or Gregory. And I see some comments here about, some people said it won't be Gregory. I think I had David here, and
Yeah,
then
Dave disagrees with me.
and Gregory too injury prone probably will be Browning if he can stay healthy. So
Yeah,
yeah,
well, that's just
again,
it.
it's
The
like
help.
it's if they're not injured, right? And I see the argument for Gregory. I mean, he does have that in him. We've seen that in Dallas. If he's on the field, he's definitely a game changer. He can definitely strip sack the quarterback. He can get his numbers. But we have to see we have to see him on the field. And if he's gone, then these other folks like Zach Allen and or Baron Browning will definitely lead the team in sacks.
Yeah, and they have to stay healthy, really. For this team to succeed on defense, they have to count on both Browning and Gregory being on the field and being impactful. If they miss a bunch of games, if they're not two of the sack leaders, then the injury bug hit again, and the team is going to struggle getting after the quarterback. And in this day's game, you have to get to the quarterback and you have to get him on the ground. I'm not a fan of this. Let's create pressure anymore. You can do that against certain quarterbacks, but there are some quarterbacks that will just completely beat you under pressure. And there's one of them in the AFC West that they have to get by in order to get back to the top of the heap, and that's Patrick Mahomes. He sliced apart the Philadelphia Eagles defense. They were getting pressure on him, but they could not get him sacked, and that cost him. I think if they'd have got 2 sacks in that second half, they would have won that game. They would have won the Super Bowl, but they couldn't do it. So they have to stay healthy. If they're not leading the team in sacks, something went wrong and they're struggling on defense. I'm going to
Agreed.
say hello to Rodney Garcia coming in saying, "Good evening, Thomas and Ron and Broncos country. Hope all is well. Does anyone know the status of Javonte Williams?" Well, we talked a little bit about Javonte Williams. I've talked about it several times. They say he's on track. They think he'll be back. They're hoping for the start of the season. I doubt it. It's going to be more midseason. But my problem is he going to be the same player? And I don't think he will be for this first year back from the injury. I just don't think he will be. It's too hard of an injury to come back from. Now, maybe the following season he may be back to his old self. He may have fully healed up. I think it's wishful thinking to think that he will be back by midseason and playing at the same level we are all accustomed to seeing him play. So that's my take on it. I think he's going to be back a little bit, but not fully back. And that to me, that really hurts my heart because I love watching Javonte Williams play, and I hope he does get back to his old self. But I think he'll be back at earliest midseason, and he's going to have to develop a little bit, get back his legs back under him.
Yeah, thank you, Rodney, for your comment and question. And I agree with Thomas. We just don't, again, they said he's had a schedule and he'll be ready for the season, but I have my doubts. And then when he does come back on the field, yeah, how effective is he going to be? I mean, in what situations will they use him, right? And that's why it's paramount that we solidify this running back room, because he can come back and be 50%, maybe less than that, right? Because that injury was very complex, and we don't know how it's going to affect his running ability, especially the way he runs. He's a hard runner. He shakes off tackles, and with that injury, all that will be affected. So we just don't know the plan when he is ready and how they're going to use him when he gets back.
And there's also a mental thing too, getting over that injury and getting back to you, not just the
Yeah.
physical healing and being back, your knee is back to the way it is. It's the mental part of getting back into the game and knowing that knee is going to hold up again. That you can't underestimate the time that it takes to recover from that. A lot of these players go to, sports psychologists and stuff to help them get back from. So there's a lot going on there. It's not the simple ACL tear that people have been able to come back from quickly anymore. So, I mean, I hope for his speedy recovery. I hope for him to be his old self. Like I said, he was a fan favorite, one of my favorites watching him run. So, yeah, hopefully he comes back.
Yep. And then we got Phil McLaughlin coming back in here. Thank you, Phil. We always appreciate you. He says, I don't think we should ignore Allen or our new kid Sanders. He can be a real pressure guy. And I'm assuming this is talking about who will lead the team in sacks, going back to that point. And Phil, I don't even think we're ignoring those two. We did mention Allen for sure, as being the guy that can definitely, have his number of sacks. With Sanders, though, I'm just not sure. It's going to depend on, how they use him. I can see them in pressure packages, he coming up and rushing the passer. But, I don't see Sanders out there. He's at least in the first year as a 3-down backer, right? It's going to be special teams in certain defensive schemes and pressure packages, situations that they use him. But your point's not ignored at all. Like Sanders is a baller. Like the tape shows he flies around the football. He's a above average tackler, can come up on the blitz, can do the pressure. So he's a very solid defender. And but hopefully Vance Joseph can use him correctly. That's the problem, because we did see what happened with Isaiah Simmons in Arizona.
Yeah.
So that's the key. So if Vance Joseph can use him properly in those situations, sky's the limit for the kid for sure.
Yeah, and I tweeted that out right away when I saw them draft Drew Sanders. Like, that's going to be the kind of movable piece that I thought they could do with Baron Browning when they decided to move him to edge. They thought they would be able to move him around, put him at different spots, but they really didn't. And then I realized, yeah, Vance Joseph is the defensive coordinator, and I kind of lost a little hope, really. I think Drew Sanders is an impactful player, and he can rush, he can blitz from pretty much any gap. He's got that well-rounded experience, but it's a lot to to think that a third round guy coming in, rookie, is going to be really impactful as a pressure guy. I think they're going to bring him in packages. I think they're going to give him some time in, if there's not injuries, obviously. If injuries force him into the starting lineup, then that's a different story. But I think they're going to bring him in, have some packages for him, move him around a little, kind of Micah Parsons light. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping that he can do. But like you said, and we looked at what Vance Joseph did with Isaiah Simmons, who's supposed to be a generational talent that could be all over the field playing everywhere, and it never really, he did an okay job, but it wasn't otherworldly or anything. It wasn't his projection. So I don't know if that was Isaiah Simmons just couldn't, make it in the NFL as he did in college, couldn't take that big leap, or maybe it was Vance Joseph not using him in the right ways. But yeah, I'm with you, Phil. I think he's going to be fun to watch down the road. I think it's a lot to ask a third round rookie to come in and be really dynamic and get all that pressure that we're hoping to see him. I want to temper our excitement for it, but I am excited. I'm definitely excited.
Yes. And again, we'll see how they how they use them, right? Again, we do anticipate those pressure packages, and again, that could be good enough maybe after next season to get him that starting job. And obviously with Joey Z. Jules's situation, we just don't know. So definitely hope for that guy.
Yeah, I mean he's brought it. He's definitely come in to kind of take over that Sternad role, right? I don't think Sternad's going to make the team if everybody still stays healthy, because you can't rely on him to come in and fill in as a starter. We saw him and he failed. I'm sorry, it just was a failure. That's why they went out and got Drew Sanders, I think, to come in, fill in that backup role when necessary, to fill in as a starter, but play that special teams role that Sternad played pretty well. I thought he was a pretty good special teams guy, but I think you got somebody a little bit more athletic, a little bit more impactful, can play a little bit different, so to speak, like, more packages, so to speak, than Sternad. And then obviously Josie Jewell's not going to be around too much longer because his contract is coming up. You got to plan for the future starter. I liked Griffith last year, got injured, so we don't really know what we have in him, right? So I think it was a good move. I just don't want to expect too much out of him.
Yeah. And we got Rodney coming in here. Rodney Garcia, thank you, sir. And this is a good question. Yes. Do you guys think Riley Moss will take over Mathis's position at cornerback?
I don't.
Okay.
I'll just say it. No, I don't. Not this year, unless there's injury. I thought Damari Mathis played really well towards the end of the season, and I think he's penciled in as the starter. I don't see Moss coming in and doing that right away. I think Moss is going to be a great special teams guy. I think, this year, and then, maybe down the road he might take over. I don't know, but not next year, not in 2023, unless Mathis has an injury or something unforeseen happens where he completely regresses. But I don't see it. I don't see it in 2023, even though I do like Riley Moss, and people are saying he's some people say he's the steal of the draft, the best value, whatever. But I just I don't see him unseating Mathis after what I saw from Mathis last year.
Yeah, you can't have Moss come in and kind of take over, especially with what we saw from Mathis last year. I mean, again, Mathis had his learning curve last year, as we saw, but once he got over that hump, he was a solid corner beside Surtain. And I think, hopefully, I know we have Vance Joseph as our DC, but
fingers crossed.
That's on the condition that Vance Joseph can bring the best out of these players. But with more playing time in this defense, he was able to be step for step with the other team's receivers, the number 2 receivers, and he's a good tackler. So I would say, as good as Riley Moss is, and he was great. He's a good prospect. I don't see him overtaking Mathis's position at all, just because, again, Mathis has been there already for a year. He knows the defense, and I think we still have to, or the Broncos still have to unlock Mathis's potential, because I think he could even be better.
Yeah. No, I do too. And really, I mean, Moss is going to be a special teams guy. I mean, you can't forget that Sean Payton went out and got a familiar face in Tremon Smith as a experienced corner. So it's going to be tough for Moss. He's going to have to be very impressive to see a lot of time on the field on defense. Now, I think those first 3 picks that they made were special teams oriented right away. I think all 3 of them are going to be standouts special teams while they develop and get more time on the field. I think all of them. I think Mims is going to be your punt returner. I think you're going to see Sanders and Moss a lot on special teams coverages. And let's face it, the Broncos have been poor on special teams. So that's not a knock. I'm not trying to knock them. And that's a third phase of the game that needs to be improved dramatically. And I think those 3 were definitely in mind when drafts were made, that they could contribute well on special teams and develop into really good in their respective defense and offensive positions. So I'm not trying to knock Riley Moss. I just think it's going to be hard for him to see the field on defense right away.
Yeah. Then I agree with you, Thomas, in the sense of they draft these players just for their special teams impact. Now, do expect some play designs, again, some packages, as we mentioned, right, in the Sanders case, that they will be out on the field. right? Some third down situations or some second down situations in the passing game, for example, for Mims. But I think the core, what they're going to be doing mostly on this team is contributing in the special teams realm.
Yeah, and Rodney's got another question for us about the schedule here. I don't want to change the subject too much, but it's going to be interesting. Like, who do we think we're going to open up the season against? That's an interesting question, Ron. You know, I don't know. I kind of thought maybe the Jets, just because of the whole Nathaniel Hackett got Aaron Rodgers, who we all thought was going to, as a Broncos fan, we thought Nathaniel Hackett's going to get Aaron Rodgers to the Broncos. I kind of thought that, but I'm not really sure, man. That's a hard question for me to answer, but that would be an intriguing one for the NFL. But I think the Jets maybe has some other intrigue elsewhere that maybe kind of overrides the intrigue of the ex-coach, hope to get that star quarterback. What do you think?
Yeah, it may be someone, maybe like the Dolphins or the Bears. I'm thinking, or some initial thoughts as far as who they may open up against. I do see that the Jets is intriguing because although it may not be the season opener, depending on when it comes out, the schedule, I can see that maybe being like a prime time game, like a Sunday night.
Yeah.
Especially like as you mentioned, right, with Hackett, Aaron Rodgers, with the old team with Hackett, and so that'll be intriguing if they declare that one a Sunday night game. But I think with the Broncos now trying to reset, I do expect someone like, again, the Bears, Dolphins, Vikings, maybe as kind of like an opener.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the NFL thought they made a mistake after watching the Broncos fail so miserably. They had Seattle right on the first shot. So, Sunday night, or was it Sunday night or Monday? I can't even remember now. The primetime game, the whole rivalry now between Russell Wilson and the Seahawks and all that. So maybe they're going to kind of go into it a little more cautiously this year. And you may be right, Ron. They're going to, it's going to be a Sunday game, somebody that we don't expect. I don't know. But I do think they're going to pump up the Jets, the whole, link between them. I thought maybe it would be the first game, but you might be right. It could be, they're a little gun shy, so to speak, to jump on there. So,
yeah. And I do expect, if the Broncos, do well later in the season, maybe some games flexed out,
yeah,
in prime
for
time,
sure.
for sure. But I think, they've learned their lesson of, let's not, schedule 5 or 6, prime time games with the Broncos when we just don't know, right? So,
yeah. Yeah, I'm going to grab my man, Keith Brugman here. Thanks for coming in, Keith. It's good to see you tonight on the Orange and Blue View with Ron and myself, Thomas Hall. So he's saying, are we all on the Cushionberry train now? Or are we going to push for 7th round pick Forsyth? Yeah, that's interesting because you've heard me, Keith, talk about Cushionberry many, many times and how I think Sean Payton thinks that he can be the guy because he liked him coming out of college and he thinks that he can do something different that we haven't seen out of Cushionberry. So I think we all kind of have to be on the Cushionberry train, right? To start out because he's penciled in as the starter. I'm not happy about it. I was hoping that the Broncos would draft somebody earlier in the draft that could step in and really challenge Cushionberry for that starting job. I like Forsyth, and there's been support for him, really. I mean, Jeff Schwartz came out and said, he's going to be a great pick. I think they talked about his draft process, right? That he kind of went the wrong way. He shouldn't have went with the testing and he should have went to, played, the Senior Bowl or whatever and really showcased his talents on the field as opposed to going and showcasing his, lack of athletic skills. And that really dropped him down. But, with a little bit of development, I think he could be a pretty good player, but it would be a stretch to think that he's going to really push Cushionberry in year one for that starting role. I think if anyone's going to push Cushionberry, it's their 1 year free agent signing Kyle Fuller that may do it more than the rookie. I don't know what you think, Ron.
Yeah, thank you, Keith, for your question. We always appreciate you. Well, I think we somewhat have to be on the Cushionberry train, Keith. It's this is a former third round pick. We had high hopes for Cushionberry. We want him to succeed. We want him to do well. So, given that, we somewhat have to be on this train. Now, it all's going to depend on how it shakes out in camp, right? If Alex Forsyth comes in, gives him a run for his money, and plays better than him, then definitely we can see Forsyth out there. But I think right now, given what the Broncos have outside of Forsyth that they just drafted, and then maybe bring in Fuller, I mean, Cushionberry is all we have. So we have to hope that he can do well with this new coaching. And again, we want him to. I'm not saying I'm on the train per se, but I do want him to succeed. I do want him to succeed for sure, and I want him to get it right, and hopefully we can have some sort of stability at center. But again, only one can hope, and we'll just have to see.
And the problem is too, is if he does succeed, he's probably gone, right? He's unrestricted free agent after the season. So if he does succeed in high fashion, people are going to be coming after him to try and sign him, because I liked him coming out of LSU. I thought he was a steal at the third round, and I was wrong. I think a lot of other people did as well. So, if he plays really well, and they're going to have to bid for his services, and that's unfortunate. So it's a good that they did get a developmental guy to come in. So I hope he pans out, like you said, but either way, he's probably not going to be in orange and blue after the season. Got Gary Palmer coming in with some support. Thank you so much, Gary. Appreciate it. We always appreciate seeing you on here. And he says, hey guys, the reality is these picks are for next year and a few will be starters, but that doesn't mean they won't be impactful. Go Broncos and buck them. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Gary. It's true. I mean, like I said, it's going to be a stretch to see any of them getting a lot of starter time. And if you think about it, second round, bottom of the second round, historically, it's less than 50-50 that they even become a primary starter in their entire career, let alone in year one, right? It's less than 50%. And then your round three guys, it's even lower. It's more down the line of 30% of being primary starters for their career, let alone in year one. But yeah, I think they're going to make their impact on special teams. And I think you'll see some packages where they may make impact. I'll tell you, I think Mims is a good signing. I think he's going to be able to do what Montreal Washington couldn't. Not that I'm down on Montreal Washington. I don't want him kicked off the team. He struggled for sure, but I thought he could be that kind of, movable piece on offense in certain packages. I think they just completely misused him last year. They let his confidence get hurt after those fumbles, and they kept putting him out there. So I don't think they did right by Montreal Washington. But you're right, Gary. I think you're going to see some plays for them on defense and offense if injuries don't force them into the lineup. But you're going to see their impact on special teams. That's one thing in year one. And hopefully by year two, you're going to see Mims step into a bigger role. You're going to see Drew Sanders step into a bigger role. I don't know about Moss stepping into a bigger role with the young guys they have in cornerback, and Quan Williams still under contract. That'll be hard pressed to get him on the field, but you're going to see them definitely get a little bit bigger role down the road. So thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Gary, for generosity. We always appreciate you. And I agree with you and Thomas that, these picks will have an impact. Now, again, granted, we're not going to see them in a lot of starting situations, right? Well, you will see them in, again, different package situations on defense, i.e. Sanders, obviously special teams, Mims, punt returner. And in certain play designs that Sean Payton runs, you can see Mims lined up as well. So I can definitely see a big impact from all of these draft picks just in the first year. But again, they may not start, but that doesn't mean, to your point, that they won't be impactful. So I definitely agree.
Yeah. And they're going to have to become impact. At least one or two of them over the next couple of years have to become impact players. The reason why the Broncos have been bad, there's a lot of reasons, but one of them is they have missed on those middle round drafts. They didn't get lucky and get impact players. You look at the Chiefs, right? They've dominated the Broncos, and I hate the fact that I have to say that, but they have. But part of it has been because they found mid to late round players in the draft who became impact players. You got Kelsey, you had Tyreek Hill, you had a couple defenders that, you had players that stepped up and became impact players, and they weren't expected to be, but you have to hit on them. So at least one of these players, if the Broncos expect to get back into relevancy and compete for the AFC West and compete for Super Bowls, they have to hit on some of these guys that aren't expected to pan out. So when I'm looking at it, that's the safety, Skinner or Drew Sanders. Somebody has to be that impact player. It has to happen in the next couple of years because, one, they don't have the first round draft choice in order to have that impact player. But even if they did, even if those first rounders, they still need more to compete because other teams have done a better job of finding those gems. So in my mind, it has to happen. One of these guys has to step up and be an impact player, surprises everybody, and help get those Broncos back to that winning ways that we're used to. And that's my feeling on it. And if they don't, then we're in for another, even longer time of seeing mediocrity.
Yep. I agree 100%. And Rodney coming in here. Thank you, Rodney Garcia. He says Mims is going to take Hamler's job.
Absolutely.
Yes. you are correct. That's the reason they drafted Mims to be that speedy threat down the field. Obviously, and Montrell Washington, right, to be used as that returner. And so Mims, hopefully stay healthy. He will come in and provide a big impact to this offense. And like we all were high on Hamler, right? We saw the tape at Penn State, the speed, and we saw glimpses of it in Denver. It's just the injuries, man. It's sad, but with Mims here, I think we'll start to see this offense take shape in Peyton's eyes, and he'll definitely be that replacement for Hamler for sure.
I'll tell you, I think barring injury, you're not going to see Hamler or Albert O in orange and blue in 2023. I think if Hamler has a pretty good preseason, that first couple games, Albert O plays a little bit, shows what he can do. I think they're going to try and get something, even late round picks for them before the season starts. That's my feeling. Unless some wide receivers go down, I think you're going to see those two put out there as trade bait, hoping to get something for them late in the rounds, and they should. You don't need 3 KJ Hamlers on the team. And that's what you have. You have him, Washington, and now Mims. You don't need all 3 of them, right? And they went out and traded for Trotman as a tight end. You've got the tight ends that you need. So go out and see if you can get something for these young players. Some teams maybe hope that they stay healthy and can provide an impact for them. I mean, look what Peyton got for Trinity Benson from the Lions 2 years ago in preseason, right? He went out and got I think a 6th rounder for him, and he never ended up really playing for the team. And then he ended up coming back and signed on the practice squad for a while in the Broncos. So I think they can get something for him. And I hope they do, because I think for their sake, they need to play, they have playing time. So hopefully they can go somewhere where they get that.
Yes, agreed. And we got Phil McLaughlin coming in here again. Thank you, Phil, as always. He asks, did we or will we bring in a kicker and a punter this year?
We brought in a punter already. Broncos brought in they got rid of Waitman and brought in Riley Dixon. So they already have their punter who they think is the man, right? They should, in my mind, and I said this when they were trying to go get Mark King there, that had the Marquette King. Sorry. I was like, why are you getting rid of Riley Dixon? He's a young up and coming punter, and you let him go, and he went and had a pretty good career. Now you bring him back. So that's my feeling. I think they need to bring in competition for McManus as a kicker. They didn't draft one because they didn't have the 5 picks to do it, but they didn't have enough picks. They only had 5 to really go after a kicker, but they should bring in competition for him at least.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Hopefully, like I said, with Dixon coming here, it should be better, and definitely competition at kicker. I think a lot of people know my thoughts on McManus. He used to be money, and he's make misses now. In my opinion, it's really a coin flip with him. So someone coming in to help him with competition, I think would be great for the Broncos.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we got David McIlrath coming in. Sorry, we haven't jumped on you here for a while and brought your comments in, but I think he disagrees with us a little bit. He says all 6 players drafted will make impacts in their rookie year. That's why they are drafted. That's a good point that you make, David. It depends on what you're talking about as impact. When I'm talking about like an impact player, I'm talking about somebody that is good enough to be recognized for those awards, the all pro or the maybe a Pro Bowl, that type of impact. When you're saying like an impact of making a play here and there that is really impactful, absolutely. I hope so. I don't, it's hard to think that all of these players are going to see much time on the field. Some of them definitely will, but some of them may not even see time on the field for a while. So that's where I'm coming from when I say impact. Like they develop into that player that you're like that guy should be getting an award for that season because he did so well. But yes, I think they will all make some sort of impact. And I think it's on special teams. I think Mims is your punt returner. I think Tremont Smith is your kick returner, which pushes Marshall Washington off the team or at least on the bench, right? And then I think Sanders and Moss and even Skinner are going to be very impactful on those coverage teams. I think that's where they're going to make their most impact, but hopefully, like I said, they pan out and they make impact on offense and defense as well.
Yeah, again, thanks, David. And I agree with you as well that I think all will make an impact. It just depends on, I guess, where do you see that impact? Now, for me, the two of the biggest issues with this team has been the playing offense and the horrible special teams all these years. And to Thomas's point, I see these players coming in and contributing on the special teams. And it could only go up from here on the special teams. And so them coming in, getting those snaps on special teams should be an impact in itself. We should start to see an immediate improvement on special teams, with the veterans that we have and these rookies that we just drafted. And then once they get more playing time and kind of get to understand the system more, from a long-term perspective in years 2 and 3 and 4 and so on and so forth, we'll start to see them, shape and form into their own, being out there as a starter and definitely just taking this team to a different level. But yeah, I think all of them from the start, from day one, will definitely be an impact. And I see that impact being more on special teams. But I also see within starting snaps on offense and defense, them making a big contribution.
And they have to, like I said, they have to pan out if the Broncos are going to, make that next step. They can't just rely on great coaching and less talent. It's just at some point the talent wins out and they have to. So health and talent will win out, and that's what they need to have happen with these rookies. So with that said, Ron, I think we're winding down here. So I hope everybody has a wonderful week and a wonderful evening. And we will see you. I'll see you on Saturday with Mile High Insiders with Luke Patterson, since we did the old switcheroo. I'll also hopefully see you on Friday for Legends of Mile High. But all of us here in Mile High Huddle, we have a different perspective. So check out all of the shows. Check out all the Mile High Huddle shows. They're all good. They all have a different perspective. Check us out. We all write. We all put stuff out there. A little more detail in the writing, hopefully for you to to peruse. So anyway, thank you so much, Ron. Any last words before we close it up?
No. So we'll see how these rookies pan out. Again, hoping that I agree with everybody that they will have an impact. And as Keith says here, please smash that like button, share, and subscribe.
Thank you very much, Keith. And thank you all. And have a great evening, Broncos country. We will see you next time.
Thank you.